I want to thank New Life Church for the opportunity to chat with you today, kind of share my story, and hopefully it encourages and it inspires you. Many of you may know me without actually knowing me. On July 18th, 2020, an individual came into our church at Grace Covenant Christian Church with the intent on attacking one of our assistant pastors. We were in a new members class, and there was only 18 people there. But he came in and had some weapons, and it was very clear early on to me that his intentions were not to debate theology. What ensued next was an extremely horrific scenario where he tried to attack one of our assistant pastors, and I grabbed him to restrain him and to get him away from our assistant pastor. In that process of intervening with him, I was stabbed twice. Was stabbed in my left quad, and then I was also stabbed in my main artery in my right leg, which the knife wound was so sharp and so severe that it cut and completely severed my main artery. And I watched my main artery fall outside of my leg and begin to spray blood like a fire hose. As you can imagine, it's not many people who ever think something like that would happen in a church. When everyone told me to stop running and people literally jumped on my leg to keep my leg together because my main artery was flapping all over the place, the first thing that they said that came out of my mouth was, "God, I thank you for this opportunity." What is interesting about that story is I believe that a part of my life died at that moment, and a part of my life was resurrected. Because from that moment, which was a horrific day, literally on July 18, 2020, it was the worst day and the best day of my life. Not many people know what it's like to see themselves dying. People feel themselves dying, they have a heart attack or something, and all that is bad. But very few people can feel and see themselves dying. I'm dying in a church. In a church, the most sacred place for many of us. And when I woke up that morning, there is no way in the world you could have convinced me that I would almost die in the place where I worship God. Now, what happened next, I pray, transforms your life. I pray that it encourages you like it has encouraged me. Because when I share this story with people, the thing that I always want them to know is that it was worth it. That I was glad I was there, because if I wasn't there and I didn't intervene, it would have been one of the most horrific church massacres per se, probably in our country's history. But I'm here today to encourage and inspire you that there is purpose in your pain. And I don't know what you're going through right now. It could be a divorce. You may be looking for healing that for years and years it hasn't come. I don't know what your situation is, but I want to encourage you that God is still the God of this universe, regardless of what we're going through with COVID, what we're going through in our political systems, what we're going through with social injustices. God is still on the throne. Jesus risen for this occasion. And this is the perfect time for Christians like you and me to not be silent about the gospel of Jesus Christ. What's interesting is that God made sure that I was conscious and awake for the whole ordeal so that I could tell every detail of the story with such conviction that people who heard it could not deny that God is still in the business of doing miracles. So I'm in ICU and I'm bawling. And I'm sitting in there and the medicine wore off and it's 4 o'clock on the dot. And I'm in ICU and I'm sitting there and I'm crying. I'm not crying because I got stabbed. I'm not crying because I almost died. I'm not crying because I had what was almost a 3-hour life-saving surgery. I was very emotional and crying because I was a Christian, that I know God had told me to do certain things in my life, and I procrastinated on it. Whether it was my job, because, we live in the Washington, D.C. area. Everyone's trying to move up the quote unquote corporate ladder. There was all these excuses, this laundry list of the things that God has specifically told Demetrius Doss to do. And I realized that if I had passed away, that I was going to have to answer for every one of those things. Because I knew that what God told me to do, it was for me. And there was no one else on the planet that could do those things quite like Demetrius Doss could. And I sat there and I'm just bawling because I was so embarrassed that I allowed my own selfish ambitions to put what God had ordained and told me to do. I put it on the shelf. And in that ICU room, God shows up. It's like a silhouette. He's at the foot of my hospital bed, and he just says, "Are you done?" He didn't give me a pity party. He didn't say, "Oh, I told you that I was going to take care of you. Not only did you live and you're alive, but they didn't amputate your leg like what a lot of people thought." He didn't give me a pity party. God said, "Demetrius, are you done?" Essentially, am I done crying? So I wiped my tears and I said, I'm like, I guess I am. And he says, "Good. Are you ready to go fishing?" And at that moment, I realized that the reason why I survived was not so that I could live for my wife and for my 2 children, but God used this bad situation to absolutely inspire me and to provoke me now to go on a mission to fish for men, to bring them into the kingdom of God. The amazing thing about that story is my life really started July 19th, 2020. And now, like many of you, I am on this mission to share the gospel of Jesus Christ with as many people as possible, to share my story. How can the horrific ordeal that I went through on July 18th, 2020 at Grace Covenant Church in Chantilly, how can that be used to encourage and inspire people? And I'm telling you right now, I survived for this moment. Though I didn't know you, I didn't know who a New Life Church was. But I'm here today because God has this specifically ordained that I need to talk to certain people. And today, I'm talking to you. I don't know what God has told you to do, but I pray that you don't wait until your book is almost written before you decide, okay, God, I'm going to do it. Some of you have a calling to be pastors, to plant churches, to go in the community in a very non-traditional way. Some of you, God has called to do great things, and you're burying that calling under all these other things. And I'm telling you, the worst thing that I felt was not being stabbed, was not almost dying in the arms of my wife. It wasn't watching myself bleed to death profusely. None of that compares to realizing when I'm in that ambulance and they had 2 tourniquets on my leg because they couldn't stop the bleeding from my stab wounds, was the realization that I had not done the things that I know God had called me to do. That feeling is absolutely worse than death. So let me encourage you, and let me inspire you not to procrastinate. I don't know what pain that you're going through right now, but there is purpose in your pain. What the devil meant for evil, God meant for good. We hear it and we read that verse in the Bible over and over again. I'm telling you right now, God can use your pain to transform lives. So, like I am, I want you to be a good steward of the situation that you're going through, because it's not just for you, it's for someone else. That's part of your calling. How Christians persevere through pain is what makes us Christians. It's what makes us Christ-like. So I hope that today, this little devotional video, it encourages you and inspires you, that my story would galvanize the Christians at New Life Church to be more than conquerors, to truly be the head and not the tail. I am so glad that I didn't die on July 18th for this moment right here. I'm pretty sure I'm talking to somebody that is now going to change lots of people's lives. Hopefully it's a lot of you. But this is what we need to do to win this region, this DC metro area, for the kingdom of God. Don't get stabbed before you start to think that way. Live life right now. Bless you guys much. Thank you for the opportunity.